And take 24. We're ready to go? Cool. Hey there, St. Martin's family. I'm greeting you from the UK and I am seriously missing you all. It's really different being out of school, and I've just learned some lessons, and in this time of isolation, it's officially been a month of isolation in the UK as of today, and it's been a really huge time for me to reflect. I work as an assistant teacher / gap student at a primary school called Amesbury in Surrey, and I'm currently looking after the kids of key workers during the day, and it's really interesting for me to use this time to think and process. And I was listening to a podcast by Brian Heasley. He's a huge role model of mine, and when he was younger he went to prison actually, and they were asking him in this podcast, so now in light of that experience that you had, what advice can you give us in light of this isolation time? And he related to his jail days, and he said there's 4 types of people that come into jail. 4 different types of people, he categorizes them. And I think this is interesting because sometimes it can feel like being stuck at home, can feel like we're in jail basically with a crazy family driving us mad, and I think that's really cool. And so we can look at these four types of people, and there's firstly the one that is the person that is just doing time. They get in there and they just put their head down and get on with it. And sometimes it can feel like that people get into isolation and they just put their head down, get to work, and that's it. And then there's also the second group, which is the old timer, who this is not their first time in prison. They've been here before, and they're quite comfortable in that space. It's kind of like a safe zone where they can eat healthy and just chill. But and so I think that's also like people in isolation. We've been there before. It's just an interesting space. Not much happens, and we just leave it at that. And then there's another group, the third, the gleaners, and they get in there and they make the most of it. They take this chance to grow. They eat healthy. They keep fit. They take all the courses that they can. They really use this time to grow and mature and reflect on who they are. And then there's fourthly the disorganized, and they get in there and they're completely lost. They don't have a plan, and they waste their time. They mope about, they're completely lost and just saddened by why they're here. And at the end of their time, it feels like it's wasted. And I think these 4 groups can really represent all of us. And we have a choice of what we're going to do. And I really think it's really important that we try and become like the gleaner, to make the most of this time. And I think we need to ask the question of what does it actually look like to glean? And setting realistic expectations here is really important. I've been following an artist recently named Godot van der Werf, and he says a beautiful quote. He says, "Boredom breeds creativity." And it's really interesting that in times of silence and pausing and a chance to think and be bored, there's a chance where creativity comes and beautiful inspirations come from. And I think those are really important. We've got this chance now, and to use that. We can often be distracted by Netflix or YouTube and not see as a chance to just be bored for a moment, and in that boredom create and think and process and just be. And yeah, I think that's really interesting. And there was another guy, Fashid Fati, who was put in self-isolation for a whole year in prison because he was standing up for Jesus and that. And this was in Iran, and he stood up for Jesus, and for a whole year he's in self-isolation. So he's asked this question as well, and it was really interesting that he one of the things he said that stood out for me was be grateful. Find a thing to be thankful for. It's interesting, the scientists have proven that when we're thankful, when we're grateful for something, dopamine is released in our brain, and that's super important for just functioning as a human. And yeah. A beautiful phenomenon that happened in the book of Acts in chapter 16 in the early church was Paul and Silas are thrown into prison for preaching about Jesus, and they put in these shackles, and they do the thing that's least expected, and they start singing. They sing at the top of their lungs, and as they do, the prison shakes and their shackles come open and all the prison doors fling open. And it's just interesting that in that time of absolute like lostness and darkness and isolation, they chose to be grateful, and a beautiful thing happened. Beauty and new life came out of that. Our whole family got to know Jesus through that. And it was just, it's really beautiful seeing these things. And they often, I've been thinking about this time in isolation and thinking of it as a furnace, in that it molds us and refines us if we allow it to. I love the illustration of a boiling pot of water, and two different ingredients are put in, an egg and a carrot. And I want to ask, who are you going to be, an egg or a carrot? In the sense of a carrot, when put in, softens itself and allows it to be molded and changed by the circumstances and becomes something beautiful and something that can be eaten really nicely. The egg hardens itself in this time. It's put in and it hardens itself. And I think we have a choice. Do we harden ourselves to the chance of being changed, or do we soften ourselves and allow a chance of refining, of creativity, of beauty to come out? So I want to ask, are you going to be a gleaner? It's really up to you, actually. Matrics, in this time of huge uncertainty, it's not lost. You've got a huge chance. You've got a chance to shine and to learn and to grow and to mold yourself and your character. Are you going to do that? For you students, this online, learning so much, are you going to get distracted by all these things? And it's okay to do that sometimes. It's okay to be distracted. But are you going to glean? Are you going to make the most of it? And then be grateful, guys. There's so much. A beautiful habit I get into every now and then is walking around the room saying, God, thank you for the tap. Thank you for running water. Thank you for dishes. Thank you that I can wash the dishes. Thank you for a mat, for a chair, for a guitar, for books to read, for plants, for nature, for the chance to go out once a day. We're allowed to walk once a day. And that's a huge blessing. I could have no walks. It's interesting, Fashid Fati, he had a prison cell where he could only take 3.5 steps in. We've got houses in which we can take 35 steps or more, and we've got that huge blessing. So looking at that and being grateful for that. So what are you going to do in this time? Who are you going to be? Are you going to allow this to be a furnace of growing? And a furnace ain't nice, like, let's be real. It's not a pleasant time, but there's growth. Gold goes in as mucky ore and comes out as something beautiful. What's your choice? What are you going to do? Is that okay? And cut.